Heart-centered marketing. We are here for December 19th, 2023, almost at the end of another year, moving into another amazing year for you and for everybody around you, hoping that that will be the case. And we're here to talk about entrepreneurship in a little bit of a different light today. Welcome. If you're here live, let us know by hitting hashtag live or hashtag replay if you happen to be watching the replay already. I don't know how that could happen if we're live right now, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Thank you for being here. It's amazing. I always like to talk to my good friend, the lovely and talented Lorna Scott. She's in the house, and she is the culprit behind what we're going to talk about today, because I got a Slack message from her this morning or yesterday and said, this is what I want to talk about. And I said, okay, so what are we talking about today, Lorna? I think I lost your audio. Is that on my side? Uh-oh. One moment, Lorna. I wonder if anybody else can hear you. Let's see here. You know what? I got you a couple times here inside the green room. I don't know which one I got to let go of here. So, let me get rid of a couple of these ones, and that might be a challenge. I did hear you just before we went live. Okay, I got you coming back into the green room. Hang on a minute. Okay, go ahead. There we go. I got you. Now I got you. I can hear you.
You got me now?
I do.
Awesome.
It's because I kept kicking you out of the green room, or Ecamm did. And then, anyway, technical challenges. It's all good. All right. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, I received an email last week from Chris Mason, who is the partner with Brian Kurtz in his Titans Accelerator Mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, this is one for his email list, and I just thought it was really an interesting take, and it's about how entrepreneurship is very similar to the 5 stages of grief. Now, given that I've had a lot of grief in my life, starting from a very young age, so it really caught my attention. And I thought, for all the times that I've gone through grief, and even recently, I had, I had 4 people in my family pass away within 3 weeks, 2 really close to me and 2 extended family. So maybe that's why I also tagged into this a little quickly today when I got the email. But it did make me think about how entrepreneurship does go through these 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So I'd just like to start with some context of what was in the email. And I tried to highlight just certain parts, but some of these are really important to understand what we're going to talk about, because we're not going to get into grief.
Right.
This isn't about grief. Many people can relate to grief. So I think this is what's going to be fun about it. And I know that if I was on a Zoom call with you, just you and me, we would likely easily talk about this, because I think we're going to have some interesting ideas. So in 2000, Chris's grandmother passed away suddenly, and he was really close to her. So that was his first taste of grief. And at the time, he was studying some psychology. And what he really loved about psychology was how we made decisions. And which is interesting, because we were talking about decisions on Academy today too. So, it's kind of a whole wraparound thing. But what he said is that he remembers sitting at his grandmother's kitchen table a couple of months after she passed, and he was talking to his grandfather. So he shared with him what he had learned about grief, which is those 5 stages. And his grandfather said something in passing, but Chris has never forgotten it, because he said, well, maybe we can skip some of those stages. And, Chris politely nodded, and in his head's going you don't skip any, that's not going to happen. But what he knew was that what his grandfather wanted to just get rid of was all the pain that came with grief. And I don't know, I'm going to think that I'm not alone in that there's been moments of pain on my entrepreneurial journey. Like pain
100%.
comes up, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
Chris's point with that is that really the only way out is through.
Yeah.
And I've heard that in the personal development work I've done, but he's just tied it up like into that. Like there's no shortcuts. That there's no way to become the person who has gone through the stages of grief without actually going through them.
Right,
And
right.
similar in business, you can't grow into the person or leader your business needs you to be without facing the challenges that are unique to entrepreneurs. So, for example, he says, you can't become someone who knows what it takes to put together a successful promotion without first experiencing the pain of a failed promotion. You can't become the
Brilliant.
person you can't become the person who knows what it takes to build the right team without knowing what it's like to deal with team members who aren't going to work out. And that sometimes we get the idea, and I think like when I read this part, I went, of course, like how many thousands of dollars do we spend? How many hours do we spend learning so that we can avoid all the landmines?
Right.
And that we can just, if we just had enough of the right advice from others and listen to the right influencers, we could avoid the pain. But we can avoid some, like we can learn. That's the point of why we're also coaches and teachers. So we
Right.
can help people avoid some pain, but they can't avoid it all. And it's making the mistakes that produces the growth, even though it really sucks.
Yes. Yes.
So he said, like, when you compare yourself to someone else who has already gone through those mistakes, it can feel depressing. And I think maybe I've taken it too lightly when I've heard people say things like, like you don't compare. That's pretty common. Like you hear that over and over. You can't compare yourself. And these people have gone, they've taken years to get their success. And when you're starting out, you can't expect to be the same. But I've never really thought about it in the way about thinking about all the mistakes they made. I
Hmm.
think about all the successes they've had and thinking, okay, I can grow into those successes and I can't be the same. But I've never, at least I don't think I've ever really put it in, like seen it as thinking about them having made all the mistakes. Even though I likely heard it, it didn't land for me.
Yeah, a lot of it's not
So,
internalized.
yeah. So he just said, it's helpful, like it's kind of the end of the year, helpful to reframe, to accept the mistakes, failures, and that embarrassing moments would happen because they're all necessary for growth. And then, like at the very end, he just says, there is no shortcut.
Right.
And we should be thankful there isn't.
Right. I
So,
couldn't agree more with that. I mean, as you know, like people I talk to, and I'm sure you talk to people as well about this, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the shortcuts, and I was looking for them. I'm not blaming anybody, but I know what it's like. And one of the biggest things that come up in my world is like the timing. So even though it's theoretical or logical to somebody that they even believe it or know it or even consciously think, I know you've been through a lot of crap, Joey. However, now is now, then was then. So there's
yeah,
always a reason, and I know this because that's exactly what I did. It's like I know you've been through it, but that was 20 years ago. You don't know what it's like today.
yeah.
Your thoughts?
Not on, like on people not thinking that you really do understand.
Well, to the degree, but it's also different. Well, today we got AI. Today we have this. Today there's not as many people online as there were when you were online, right? Well, yeah, okay. So there's 100 million people online before, and there was only 100 back then. But you have Kajabi platform, you have Stripe now, you have like all that stuff that we didn't
Yeah.
have. You have video thing, like you know what I mean. There's always this era of struggle. So, and everybody thinks that their time is the worst of the worst.
So, like I'm thinking, bringing this back to the stages of grief, in some ways, that there's
That's
I think
denial.
some denial. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And likely a little bit of, there might be a little bit of low grade anger in
exactly.
that.
There's a denial and anger. I
Yeah.
should have got
Like,
in when you got in, or I missed the opportunity, and they're mad at you for whatever it is, right? Whether they're not directly mad at you, but they're just angry at the situation.
yeah. Well, and I think the other denial is, and I say this because I've been guilty of having this denial and might be living here today with this denial likely, is that because you went through that 20 years ago, or in this day and age, it's like because you went through it 2 years ago, because like two years is now like 10 or 20. You don't understand me, like the,
Right.
and that the denial that there is actually something to learn from somebody else's journey and their mistakes. Like, you could have made mistakes, but you're not making the same ones I do. So how do you know how to help me? Like, it's I think there's just many places where I have anyway been in denial of um of that.
This kind of reminds me of a conversation between a parent and a child. When I was your age, I did. I don't want to hear it when it was your age. You're like, it's different now, Dad. It's different now, Mom. Right? The same kind of situation. Whereas, like, you have no idea what it's like to be in this world today.
Yeah, and when you put it that way, and I think of parents, um, and I mean we can be the parent or the child in our online
Hmm.
entrepreneurial journey, depending on where we're at. Uh, and I think that there's a distinction between um, what we're going through and the emotions and our mindset versus the what's in front of you that's causing that experience. So 20 years ago, what, that was 2003, so that was even pre-Facebook. um, like someone would have gone through this journey, they still would have gone through their 5 stages of grief, they still would have had to learn
Yeah.
something new, they still would have been dealing with world changes. I mean, in 2003 people were still dealing with the effects of 9/11. And so that all those things are happening in their world, and yet they're still experiencing the same types of emotions and obstacles. It's just that the situation is different, and that's what's happening now. And I think maybe in the broader terms, like two of the big things now, right now, is AI. But it's pretty much similar to what people were going through between what, like about 2003 4 to maybe 2010, like when the internet really kind of blew up. I mean, it's been around a lot longer than that. At least maybe the online business part, I think,
Hmm.
was like around that time, um, that there started to be the online business world. They're just, I don't know why that timing just, maybe it's Facebook. Maybe that's what
Well, I
makes me
mean, if I go back
something
to,
that's this.
if I go back to my first business in 87, 86, 87, somewhere like that. And I went through all these some way, shape, or form, and there was no internet. And I could be like, well, you have no idea what it was like to sit on an actual typewriter to type out a newsletter and then photocopy those and seal them in an envelope and put a stamp on them and send them in the mail to try and get sales all around the world. Like, you have no idea what that's like. And then even when I got my first printer, which was a dot matrix printer, and I learned about desktop publishing, it was like the first one, like, oh my gosh, you still have no idea what that is like. You got Canva now. You've got, you can push one button and it's all over the world in a split second. It's like, but that's, well, that was then. This is now. Okay, well then why don't I take away all of your tools, right? And put you in front of a typewriter, and there's no email list, there's no nothing. Go. Like, just go
Yeah.
ahead. Right? So
Well,
what are you going to do?
I think it's, I think that how I see it is that it doesn't matter whether it's a typewriter or if it's going from MySpace to Facebook. or you're mailing out
And there
something,
was no Facebook.
or you're, yeah, like, or you have to wait till after 8 o'clock on Sunday to phone anybody because that's the only time you could afford long distance.
Right.
Um, like the challenges are there. The challenges are there. Whatever it is, the challenges are there. And it's to look at this as a challenge or an obstacle or something you're not seeing. We haven't changed in, well, like I'm no expert. I don't know how many hundreds of years, but I'm thinking that we all have these 5 stages in some point in our life and
Yeah.
have had them, whether we were riding in horse-drawn carriages or we're on a rocket to the moon. Like
In terms of the business, yeah.
this is just, you know, what we have to deal with. So, I mean, thinking about denial in online marketing right now, I think we can bring it back to the present. The denial, I think there's two camps when it comes to AI. One is that it's not going to matter. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to learn it because, it's not really like I think the denial is there. Like to not learn to embrace it,
Right.
like they're just not going to deal with it. And the other one is that it's going to save them.
Right.
That's part of the denial.
Right.
So, and then I think, that AI theme, the if that's the case, then at some point they're going to go through anger because they're either going to need to use it and they haven't learned it and now they're behind,
Right.
or they will have used it and not used it the right way and find themselves behind.
Yeah.
And maybe even in a hole. Like I think at least if you know nothing and you catch up, maybe you can catch up. But if you
Yeah,
have
that's where
been,
I'm at. I mean, with AI coming to in the stages, by the way, we're talking about like entrepreneurship and how the 5 stages of grief parallel an entrepreneur's journey. So if you have a question or your feedback, we'd love to hear from you too. Please put it in the chat. Let us know if you're here live by #live or #replay if you're watching the replay. And we'd love to have a conversation with you and hear what you have to say or any questions or feedback or anything like that. You don't always have to agree with us either, so that's cool. But going back to the AI, like I feel as though I'm in the anger bargaining area, right?
okay.
Anger about, damn, I get like, it's not that I don't want to learn it. Like I like it. I love technology. I really, really do. But I'll just use the words. I'm just angry at how it's affecting, not how it's affecting business, but how people are not utilizing it in the right way right now, and they're thinking that it's another shortcut. So that's making me angry a little bit, but it's also on my part. I'll just use it for me, is like there's too much to learn, and that's what I'm angry about. Is like, okay, here's another video helper thingy, here's another chat GPT thingy, right? It's like, oh my god. And I don't like complexity. You know that. Like I'm a very simplistic person. And when I begin, like, I don't think anybody likes overwhelm, but when I get overwhelmed, it's on an escalated level. That's why I don't want to go there. That's why I don't like doing all kinds of different things, because I'm not like you. I'm not a 911 operator. I can't handle all that stuff coming at me, right? So that's what makes me angry, because like, well, just when is it going to end? When is it going to kind of not end, but like level off and say, okay, here's the top 3, 4, 5, 10 tools in this area, right? Kind of like, there's Kajabi and there's, Thinkific or whatever. We know the platforms basically for our online business, like it was all, the tide went out and these are the guys that stood strong, and that's it, right? That's what I'm angry about. And then the bargaining is like, okay, well, because I'm angry about it, I want to get somebody else to go do it, which is good. It's a good thing. So anyway, listening to this, if you're in that stage, at least for me, is the way I believe it, because I'm bargaining now to let someone else take over this job, it's allowing me to buy back my time. And I'll give credit to Peter Diamandis, because he's the one that said everyone needs I forget what it was called, but it was basically a chief AI operator, basically a person who just not knows how to use AI, but who understands what's going on in the world of AI. Like every business needs that in the future. And that made me angry at first. I'm like, well, there's another, right? But then it's like, okay, well, that's going to help me because now I can bargain my time back. Say, do you understand this? Fantastic. Go get somebody else on the team to go do that thing.
Yeah.
Before you answer, we got a response here from Kay. People are overwhelmed in not dealing with their losses and overwhelmed from the pandemic, so they're fighting new technologies or thinking the new tech will save them and the work of forming human relationships because entrepreneurs are exhausted. You hit the nail on the head because, exhaustion. I want to come back to this too. You open up a whole other area that I want to talk about.
I just had another thought. I got to write this down because I'll forget it.
Well, do you want to interject here?
Well, what I'm thinking.
And thank you, by the way, Katie, for being here live, and everyone else, Kay, and I think that's Collie.
Yeah, thank you, Kay, for that, because I hadn't made that connection. And when you mentioned about the exhaustion of entrepreneurs, thinking about how things have just like they escalate. There's an accelerated rate because we went through a significant, especially online. Well, I guess because even the offline business world was definitely impacted by COVID, and that it's like we just got through that. It was 2 years, and there was a lot of people who shifted quickly, but shifted quickly was likely 6 or 7 months, for many people, and it was a trial and error kind of thing, like what's going to work and how are we going to get people, online when we don't have, and how do we shift this, and how do we deal with all these people who are home now, and the influx of people available to be in an online course or on a live stream. Like there were so many shifts, and that was just a constant stress, up and down and up and down. And those 5 stages of grief, not like compounded with that, dealing with that, as well as dealing with the business piece. And now we just went from one rate jumping into AI. And really those 2 incidents were likely as significant as the dawn of the internet. Like, and we didn't have them 20 years apart or 30 years apart. Like they had 3 years apart, 2.5 years apart. So like that's a heightened stress without having any relief. And I can see people going through those 5 stages within their business because if you think about coming out of the pandemic, just with, there's that whole piece of denial. It's not going to affect my business. And then anger when it does. You're bargaining because could you just, you're bargaining in all kinds of different ways. And certainly depression, like that for the personal piece. And then, that how that impacts, and especially for online marketers who basically live in their home, that so many reasons for that. And I don't know if we, how many people ever got to the point of acceptance in what that all was about before we're thrust into something else.
Yeah. When you go back to the pandemic and then everybody going online and things, I was in the good place at the right time for me. So I was very lucky about that. It was probably one of the only times, maybe one other time in my life, where I could really say I was at the right place at the right time. Every other time was a struggle to try and catch up or do something, right? And so that I didn't go through any of the stages. I went maybe right to 5, like acceptance. This is amazing, And then in this world, and we're talking about AI for a second, and even just the exhaustion, bringing that back to the table, I'm like heavily into Peter Diamandis now, and listening to that, and just listening to like where these experts, not only him, but there's another dude, I can't remember his name now, but he's kind of on the other opposite side of it. Like it's not that really great. Things are going to be happening here that we got to kind of look at. But overall, the general acceptance of this is that like you said, the rate of implementation or the rate of acceleration of what's going to happen has no relief between the stages. It's like the computing power. So, and I forget how again, I'm not a math dude, so I forget how it was all penned out or flushed out, but basically, within 5 months, you're going to be like 1 billion times more than where you were 5 months ago. Like the amount of acceleration of what happens because of compounding effects, it was just mind blowing. It was just mind blowing. And they have all this data set that they've been looking at. And it's kind of like if you to bring it to context for anybody listening, and this as well, is like, look at the amount of information that goes on the internet per day, right? 10 years ago it was whatever what it was. And it was like, wow, that's a lot of information. Let's say it was, I don't know, 1 million pieces of information a day. And today is like 1 million pieces per minute. You're like, how I can't even fathom that. And that's what I'm talking about. Like right now, there's so much information that gets uploaded to YouTube every single day. That was like the amount of YouTube, like daily YouTube that gets added. And again, I'm going to mess the stat up, but my point will come across, is exactly the same as the entire information from 50 to 2000. Like that, all that information chunked together is being uploaded, whatever the time frame is. So please forgive me because I messed those up. You get my drift. Is being uploaded every day.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, it's mind blowing, and that's where AI is. But there was at least a little bit of relief, and we're kind of used to it because it's YouTube, we're getting videos and all this stuff. But in the terms of AI and all the stuff that it's going to advance, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And going to the exception, one more thing before I forget is the exhaustion piece, because I just had someone email me this morning, just in a conversation, and I see a light here. At least for my business, I see a light. Because I'm all about human connection, right?
Yeah.
And this person said, I'm just slowing down. I'm cutting away the noise. I'm hearing this a lot. I'm cutting the noise, and I'm looking at authentic relationships. Like that's the key for me to do everything. And I'm like, you're singing my song. Like that's exactly what it's all about. And so I think that the advancement of the AI and all the technologies and all these things, because of all that noise, because of the denial, anger, bargaining, and all that coming into play, people are just going to go, I've had enough. Like I've just had enough. And they're getting into that depression mode really quickly. And the acceptance might be, at least for my business, is the way I'm predicting it, is that to say, maybe I should turn around and look at going back to being human. Okay, so I've done my spiel enough.
You've done your spiel. And like I've got 7 spiels now, Joey.
Go ahead.
It's sending me off in a whole pile of directions.
That's usually the way it goes.
Well, so the first one that comes up, and I don't even know if this is in a logical order, but it's going to come up anyway. Because and in a way it will, because in some ways I might see that what you just said at the end is a little, I don't know if I want to say it's denial or maybe it's bargaining, because I think AI is here.
I'm not saying it's going away.
Yeah, it's how we use it. I think there's a way to use the AI. And I don't know how we went from 5 stages of grief to AI, but I think that's because it causes a lot of grief right now in our world. It is to be able to use it in a way that's helpful for us. But
100%.
there was a couple of things. I was on I'm in an AI club where we have different speakers, and I wasn't going to go today, but the speaker is someone who is like, he's been studying since 2019, so he's just in his glory, and he does this every day. He does a newsletter or whatever on Substack, that book reviews that are all AI generated. But he's a direct response marketer. Like he knows the difference. So even though he's using all AI, like he kind of knows where to use it. But he has like these extensive prompts, and that's what he was showing us. And what he did with finding your like your dream client and your audience and the pain points with just like after he built these extensive prompts, his own GPTs, and then putting in the information and how quick it went. Like my eyes were just like, it's like that. I'm spending hours doing this work. So if there's a way to use it that's still gets the information that I want, and it happens that fast, it gives me more time to be human. Like I'm not being human when I'm sitting there doing my own research on Google, and when I'm putting things into spreadsheets, and when
I would, but see, here's the point there, Lorna. I'm talking about being human by having conversations. You could do the research. Yes, I'm not arguing that it's wrong and that it doesn't help, because it certainly makes my life faster. However, what I'm talking about being human is connecting with people, chat online, this kind of thing, having a conversation, and you're still getting data if you want to do that, because you're researching and you're creating bond, and all that stuff happens because you're being human.
But what if you could do that even more?
How?
Because you don't have to do all the other research.
What research? Like, that's the whole point of being human.
Okay. Now, I'm going right back to, like, why would you teach write marketing copy if you didn't have people do research?
Well, first of all, if you want to reference that, GPT wasn't around. If I taught it today, it would be a completely different section of research.
Because you didn't start off by having all the time you have right now to do those conversations.
I don't know. I think that I'm probably, especially this year, I'm 10 times busier than I was in previous years. 10 times busier, but I'm still having conversations. Why? Because it's a framework and all that stuff, but...
No, I totally get that part.
Right?
Yeah.
But I that's what I'm not arguing against AI or anything like that. What I'm saying is that I believe I see a trend happening where people are... They're in their own stage of denial of whatever it is, okay, of the grief. They're in that whatever stage it is, but the common theme is coming up for me that I want to get rid of the noise. There's too much noise for people, and when I come in and say, you don't have to do any of that, you can just release it. Like, you can get rid of all these things. They're like a sigh of relief, and I'm like, maybe I'm still in the right place at the right time here. Because I'm not saying, oh, no, we're not going to, like I'm saying, don't use funnels. We don't have to use funnels all the way through. Because I'm not saying never do funnels. I'm saying we're reducing the funnel to the smallest, the minimum viable funnel. MVF. Minimum viable funnel.
There you go.
MVF. Okay, so the minimum viable funnel, right? So that you have more time. Where was I going with this? Now I just totally lost my train of thought. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Go ahead. What is your other?
Oh gosh! Now what? I don't know. Now I don't know. I should have written it down.
Okay, cool. You know what? So maybe this will spark. Let's go to the gallery.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
If I can just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Was just the other part. I'm thinking, like, just with, I don't know whether it's denial or bargaining, but just wonder how much of when people want to overlearn. Because it's really easy right now, if you get hooked on AI, to do all of that. Like, just to spend time trying to figure it out, trying to do your own prompts, trying to use other people's prompts. And you can get really distracted doing that and not move forward. So that was just another kind of, I guess, maybe a symptom of maybe one of the stages of grief, of coping with it.
Yeah, see, so that's where, from like I was saying, to me, I'm in that bargaining stage, because I'm as well. Here's some great prompts. Here's this, here's that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm bargaining with myself. I'm bargaining with future Joey, basically. And I'm like, I'll just wait until everybody else figures out what the prompts are. Like I told you, I have this other program I bought to help write books and stuff like that. They've already figured out all the prompts. I'm sure there'll be better ones coming in the future and all that, but they've already figured it all out. I'm like, great. I'll bargain by giving you some money so I can have your prompts. Like, you know what I mean? And that's easy. So it's let everybody else figure it all out, and I'll just sit and wait. Yeah. So yeah, it's a fun game to play. We'll come back to this in a second.
Yeah.
You want to read that?
Now there are so many courses being thrown at me about AI, and that in itself is exhausting. Yeah, so grateful I learned to focus from you, Joey, and not get caught up in the same old, even though it's different. I cannot do it all, nor want to. Love and soul hugs, Collie.
That's right. Yeah, so, Collie, like, where would you say that you're in? What stage do you believe you are in from that statement of the stages of grief in terms of AI? I'd love to know what you think. And let me just read it.
Well, or is there anywhere else in their business where, denial, like what are they avoiding that they know that they need to be doing? Like
Yeah.
that's a form of
I
denial.
don't think,
So,
well, I'll wait till she responds if she does respond.
yeah.
Because I've got it in my brain where I think she is. And since Kay says the busiest I get, the more time I make for real human research, yes, and conversations, and I use AI to take what I learned from the real interactions to help me sort and make connections. That's right. I mean, I'm using AI as a tool to do
Yeah.
that. So, for instance, because you said, go online. Why am I spending all this time online researching and doing all this when we can put the right prompt in and get all that information out? That's fantastic. But remember, AI, if you're using ChatGPT, it's using information that's not up to date. First of all, doesn't mean that you can't find something on a dream client, but it's not right up to date. So I would be cautious of that. But the other thing that I love about it is that I'm going in and grabbing all kinds of data and throwing it in and say, you sort this out. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it, right? You tell me the top 5 or 10 problems. How would you say, out of all this data, what are the top 5 or 10 problems of this market? How would you say it?
So just because I may be under a misunderstanding of
Okay.
something. So if you do
I
know
usually
this,
do that to people.
no, because this is it's really related, but a little off track. Because my understanding is ChatGPT 3.5
Yeah.
is like only up to 2022 or 2021. Like it's a couple
It's
of years.
2021. Yeah, somewhere around there.
But
Yeah.
ChatGPT 4 is web based, so it is actually
That it goes
searching
out to the web and search. You could be right. I don't want to say that I know.
Yeah. So I think it just for anybody listening, just check into that because I think but so it's like if you pay for it, you get.
Because I do pay for it. Like I have ChatGPT 4.
Yeah.
But I have not done research. I've just taken my own data and throw it in and say, go do this for me. Right.
Well, I've not necessarily, I've only done, with Ryan Levesque's quiz funnels, he's got a good like base of doing some of the research and stuff, but you have to have ChatGPT 4
Yeah.
to be able to get the data. And what David was showing today with what he was doing would have been ChatGPT 4 and even doing adding in the GPTs. But see, even like I can say those words, but like, holy moly, like, it's like, don't ask me any more questions about it because I get into overwhelm with it. Like I look at it and it's exciting and I see people use it. And then I go, where do I even find the time to learn this? And then on the other hand, so it's kind of like my denial, like, I don't know. I just can't see it. I just can't figure this out when it's going to, like, how do I fit this into, so I'm just going to like avoid it. And then there's the other part of me that says like, look at how much time you can save with this task that would free you up. So where's that, going back to, I think we were talking on Academy, like where do what am I trading my hours for? And is there a way that I can trade my hours in a better way? And so I think like I'm in multiple stages.
Well, yeah, I mean, for that,
AI.
when it comes to ChatGPT, I'm going to come back to you in a second, Collie. Like I go through many stages with it because I get angry at the fact, not of it itself, angry at the fact that it's so powerful at time. It is powerful, period. That I'm like, wow, this opens up a whole new, many doors. Like, okay, I'm going to start writing a book on this thing, and then that's always related to something else. Like that's a cool idea, and I'm going to split that into another book. Like, and so there's so many doors that are open, and I get angry. Not at myself, maybe because I'm not focused on it, or like, I got to control my ADD better now because I've got all these things happening now, or there's way too many depth of, okay, just here, write this email better. And they write it. And they're like, okay, cool. Can you write it a little bit simpler? Okay, cool. Can you write a little bit shorter? Like, you know what I mean? It just never stops because you can just go, wait, let me just make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And that's
Yeah.
what I get angry at about for me. So I'm in between that bargaining and that anger stages of it. It's like, can I just get somebody else to go do this? Like, I'm so addicted to information, to learning. I can't even describe what it feels like for me when I get access to information.
Yeah.
Like I am just, it's like air to me. Like, I just cannot not do it. If you put me in a library, you'll never see me for the rest of your life. Like that's it, I'm done. Especially now with computers so now you give me a ChatGPT thing and then I'm putting my own information into it and it's spitting things back out. I'm like, you mean I could, anyway, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole. Hang on a second. Let me go back.
So you don't want to tell you don't want me to tell you that now ChatGPT's got now there you can build your own assistant and have your own assistant there.
Well, it's already built into Notion. That's what they're doing. Yeah, it's your assistant. So you can ask it. Yep. I get it. So, Collie, going back to what we said, she feels that she's between frustration and sad over all of it, which means depression, I guess. Mm-hmm. Not denial, not angry. So you're in depression.
Well, and frustration to me is based in anger.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think frustration is a and Collie would be able to speak to this maybe better than I can, but that's would at least fall into that family. And I think frustration is sometimes an expression of anger.
Yeah.
As opposed to being different. Like it's
and
the one thing that with
this is the just to go back to it, this is what she said.
Yeah.
So just to be clear.
She's grateful to learn about focus, but there are so many courses thrown.
And that's an anger. That's anger.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, I don't need any more of this. Stop, and get rid of it. And that's I'm there too, Collie. Like, oh, holy crap! I don't want to know anymore. Just leave me alone, and I'll deal with this on my own, or let somebody else deal with it.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It's it's funny just when I'm thinking about it and the what do you want? Let's go to case. Think first, and AI doesn't use those very specific human phrases that are going to be valuable in really gaining insight to that soul behind the comments. Yeah,
that's
it 100%. It's a tool. It's a tool.
100%.
And I think that's one of the things that we're, the whole AI thing is going to be very similar to the entrepreneurial, our entrepreneurial class, and the stages of grief, and that it's not going to be able to escape those stages, and it's going to go through where the failures. It's going to go through. What else? The failures. That was the one that stuck out. Is that there's going to be things that come out that we're going to find out don't work, and that's just part of what's going to happen.
Yes.
I think that's just part of what's going to happen. And thinking about the human connection, when you were speaking about that and this idea of having your assistants, and what was talked about earlier in the other call I was on was how you would look at your team of AI assistants as you would humans, like
100%.
And the one thing that they talked about is the same thing, is like, if you don't give your human assistant the right information, they're not going to get the job done. And the same with AI.
That's right.
But you just start to wonder, like, where's that balance between being dehumanized and having something that's going to help you. But at one point, I remember clearly when email came out, and I was working in the fire hall at the time, and one of the firefighters was he was one of the beta testers for our cable company, doing their internet and their email, and he's talking about email, and I could not in my mind figure out how I was sending an email without being charged something. Like where do you put the stamp on an email? Like just that idea that I can send a letter and I don't have to have an envelope. Like it was such a new concept. And maybe like I'm really aging myself with that.
Well,
But
I'll age it myself even further than you, because I remember the day that I found out or heard about the internet, and it was on a cable 10 show, like one of those local cable shows. And this dude was on there just looking at a computer, and he says, one day this computer will be connected to another computer all across the world, and a whole bunch of them will be connected, and it's this thing called the internet. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I had no idea. And that was like long time ago, long time ago, early 80s, easy, early 80s. I'm like, but it was just out of my zone of understanding, like, how could this be? Because I was just learning maybe a computer at that point, but it was like, I don't even understand this. And so a couple of years later, I was in DJing, right? And so I would actually bring physical records to clubs and play, bring crates of records. And I was in, DJ clubs and everything else. I was on the board of directors and with all the guys. And one of the dudes said, he came to me, and I'll never forget it. He said, one day you're going to be at a wedding or something, and someone's going to request a song that you don't have, and you're going to be able to go on your computer and download it right then and there and be able to play it. And I said, what are you smoking? Like, what are you talking about? And he said, that's where this is going. Because at that point, we were just getting into CDs, like digitization of music. And I'm like, what? He says, yeah, there's a thing called MP3 stuff. And this is before Napster, and like now I'm really dating myself, but still, like, and this is what people that they don't understand it. Like like DJs now, they're like, what are you talking about? What's a record, right? What's this? And I just press a button and I'm mixing and stuff. I go, you have no idea. And I even laughed at that point because a couple of years into that, I would make jokes. All our DJ friends, I go, yeah, these DJs with all this computer stuff think that one day they're going to be able to push a button and mix. That's a joke. And here we are.
yeah.
Here we are. I'm like, wow, man. So that's a whole other side note, but
all
still.
I could think of was, and right now you don't even have to go to Napster and hope that you download the file without the virus.
Yeah.
Like,
so back to Kay. Kay says that AI told her that clients who have narcissistic abuse are exhausted. A human client said, I'm tired like a zombie couch potato. It's that key language that your clients will tell you, but it's still I don't know, are people narcissistic abuse people exhausted? Because that's still relevant, isn't it? But you add it to they're exhausted and feel like a zombie couch potato. That's where you can kind of marry the two. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but the way that I'm using it is I have all my customer data, like let's say zombie couch potato. And then I'll say, let's say there's a whole bunch of great phrases. And I'll say, tell me the top 10 of all this, but don't change a damn word. Like just leave everything the way it is. Don't summarize it. Just tell me what the 5 are. Because from what I understand about AI, which is practically zero, is that ChatGPT is like this 2-year-old who knows everything about everything, but it doesn't know everything about nothing, something like that. So it's a crazy thing. It's like you have to tell it exactly, like you said, Lorna, you have to tell it exactly what you want. It knows everything about everything, but knows nothing about everything. So if you just ask it, it's like, yeah, tell me the meaning of life. It's like, what? But it does know the meaning of life. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, but you have to know how to ask it. So it's like you have to talk to it like a 2-year-old.
Yeah. And it's it does depend what you're looking at for data, and I still think, I mean, going back, I mean, Kay's on the right track because she's doing the same thing that you talk about and teach, Joey, is having those conversations, and then you have them. You're getting them from the real people, um, and then using it to make connections. Um, I think there's some, you know, it, I, yeah, I'm not going to go into an AI lesson. I want to keep it back to come back to the stages of grief, because
Yep.
I mean, we talked a lot about AI because that's huge in our world. And I don't know about anybody else, but like outside of my online family, like a lot of people don't worry about AI.
I know.
you know, it's very, it's very high level if they do worry, like, oh, well, like they're going to create bombs or whatever. And it's like, well, they had a nuclear bomb before there was ever AI. So uh, just that the tools changed. That's it. Like, we're still in danger. People use good things for bad reasons. Um, like that. I don't think but like people they're not in it like we are. So
Right.
in some ways that's, can put us into different stages, because outside of here, people just don't understand. But then they don't understand a lot of what we do anyway.
Yeah.
But it parses a very non-human cold language. I would just say, Kay, that if uh, I've seen some of the prompts, and likely David Bear is the one that I've seen the best, and John Benson does some good work too. That it really depends on how you go through your process of getting the information. I don't think it can ever take place of, like like what the humans are saying. And it isn't a human being, but it can help you get started in a lot of ways. And I was really actually very surprised to see David Bayer do the prompts that he did today, because of his experience as a direct response marketer, and being in, just with where we are, where like when it comes to marketing, the foundations are in place. And if you don't know the foundations of marketing, ChatGPT is not going to help you. And you can use ChatGPT as a tool, and you should, because you're going to be left behind. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't say that sounds like a big brash warning, but I'm kind of telling myself, because I'm feeling behind, in getting to know more of like I thought I was okay in the summer, but I've not done a whole lot in the fall. So um, things move fast. But there is a way to get enough information to do some of the copywriting work, and you still have to use it in the right way. And you can't get that experience. I don't think, without, like, you still need the human being doing the writing to do it. I mean, maybe at some point it's going to be different, but I think there's a blend of it between that. I think we can get more human pieces out of AI now than we could 6 months ago.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, Lorna. That level of compounding effect is going to
Yeah.
become shorter and shorter. So yeah, it took 6 months to get here, and it will take 6 days to get, or 6 weeks to get to the next stage, and then 6 days, and then 6 minutes, or 6 hours, and 6 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to become so fast that what we're talking about today, December, January 2024, in June, this conversation will be obsolete. It'll be
Yeah.
like, you guys are so far behind, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm predicting
Or
that
we'll
right
have,
now.
or we'll have some heroes who have grasped onto the right thing that is going to propel them. Like, we're not all going to be behind, but it's going to be a
I'm not
fairly
saying
decent.
that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that the technological advances, or the prompts, whatever you want to call it, will be completely different in 6 months from now. This
Yeah.
conversation will be
Yeah.
obsolete. It'll be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what? What are you guys talking about? If you go back to this,
Like, are we
that's what I'm
really
saying.
going to have assistance? I mean, one of the thoughts I had was like, I was listening to some old YouTube videos of Rich Sheffrin's. Well, other people. There's a few people that I was listening to older, and they were talking about Periscope, and it's like, oh, I forgot about Periscope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how much of the stuff we go through with AI? So I mean, that feeds into my denial, because it's like, I don't need to pay attention to this because some of this is just going to be like Periscope, and we're going to forget we even have had it, right? So, um, we find what we get into denial. But Kay had a good point here about the grief, the stages not being linear. Absolutely. And I think maybe even with AI, I likely started with acceptance and have likely bounced around a lot. But I'm just curious within the business as a whole. We've talked a lot about AI, but I think there's a lot of symptoms that we have as entrepreneurs, where we get stuck.
Yep.
And and I know, like, we're right at the top of the hour already, but which has been fabulous. And this is why I thought it would be a cool topic, because I knew you and I could talk for an hour or two or three on this.
Yeah, definitely.
So if there's anybody that's listening that has any thoughts about where you do have, denial or anger, bargaining, depression, or acceptance, even if it's not currently now, but you've gone through some of those, it would be just wonderful, whether you're here live or on the replay, to just see where you can match those stages, and just know that we're going to have them anyway.
Can you talk a little bit more about the bargaining stage to get a little bit of clarity about that?
Yeah, I mean, in going through grief, and when I think about the 5 stages of grief, I believe there are 5 stages of grief and loss. So whether it's in we think of death,
Right.
but there's many. We lose jobs, people who go through like house fires, disaster. Like, there's all kinds of ways that these 5 stages still apply, and also that's why we're talking about them, how they apply to entrepreneurship. I've wondered about the bargaining. I was going to ask you about that, because like, when it comes to the loss, it's often if I will do anything if you will help them live. That's one of the bargaining pieces that comes in, and then when the pain, afterwards, like if it's after a death or a big loss, then it's like, just I'll do whatever it takes to get rid of the pain. Like, just help me get rid of the pain. And so, and Chris mentioned,
so they're trying to bargain for less pain, just take this away from me, and they don't want to go through the pain, which they need to go through to accept it, to get into, which brings them to depression, because they're realizing, well, this pain's not going to go away, and I don't want to get out of bed, and then goes into the acceptance. So now I see it a little bit clearer, okay, look, I've had enough of this now. Please, let's just get on with my life. But then the universe is going, sorry, you got to deal with this, right?
And I think that happens with, when I think about business and online business, that bargaining, I think of it as like, if you just give me 3 students,
right?
Just give me 3 students, just give me the break. And then you could, that's where, like Kay mentioned, the bouncing back and forth in the stages, because that kind of bargaining has led me to denial in a lot of ways. And
yeah, Lorna, you hit the nail on the head, because I see now the way that you just described that. A lot of people that I see coming to my world are they're either in the anger stage, but they're also in the bargaining stage a lot, because they'll say something like, I'm just going to do this $97 thing and bring some money in, and then I'll do what you're saying. Yeah. Right? And then that doesn't work. And then they get into depression, right? And then hopefully they're still around, and they're like, okay, Joey, help me get out of this hole. But now that you're saying this, I see this a lot. They're angry at what has happened. They're angry at other people, angry at other coaches, and all this. But they're probably, I don't know what the percentage would be, but it's a high one. like 65, 70, 75%, I would say now. I got to go back now. So you brought me into another data hole. Thank you. Because now I'm going to go look at this and say, how many of these people are actually in bargaining stage, and how can I utilize that to help them through it faster? Wow. This is brilliant.
I told you it was going to be good. I told you
Yeah.
it was going to be good. But I
It
think, like,
is.
I mean, I keep going back to denial, but I mean, for me, when I look at some of these, and this, I might look at them sequential just because I'm looking at the list. I think back to like late summer and early fall when I was doing like the internal launch, not a public launch, but an internal launch for the widows, and being on a call with Rich, where he said, like, I was 3 weeks out from the date that the course was supposed to start. And he just, like, at one point just said, like, I have the best coaches because I don't know how they don't have flat foreheads dealing with Lorna. He said, and it's just interesting. I mean, I'm so grateful I went through this year. Like, it's taken me a while to get there, but it's been such an enlightening year in its own way. Because he said it's really not looking like it's going to happen. And, it was like, but I committed to it, so my denial didn't necessarily come up as a way of, just total denial. Like, it showed up as what I thought was good, was that I was staying committed. Like, I've quit too many things too soon. I'm following this through. And he didn't tell me that I should not do it. Like, he never tells you what to do. Like, that's, even though I was hoping sometimes he would, but even when he maybe tried, I didn't listen anyway. But that denial of really looking at the information and making a decision based on what was there, not because I felt I needed to be committed. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can see that happening for other people as well, of just having that, whether it's because of commitment or just because I know that this is going to happen and it's going to work. And if you try to give them information to help them make a better decision, they deny it because they have.
Well, yeah.
They're on their path. I don't think I'm unique in what I went through, and doing that. So, then where, for me, what comes up with the anger and the bargaining is, then I'm mad at me. I'm not mad at anybody else. Like, it's like, why didn't I listen? Like, when it doesn't show up, why didn't I listen? Why didn't I even listen to myself? And I'm not getting down on myself. Please, like this, I'm just looking at it as the stages of grief, and stages of entrepreneurship, and the pain that comes with things that work out and things that don't work out. And I just like you had that aha moment. It's like that's what made me want to talk about this, was because I think that there's some gold in this, thinking of it this way.
Yeah, there is definitely where, like for me, what I'm taking from this is, I look at the stages. I always reference back to the chain of beliefs for myself. And when somebody comes into my world, I now see that they're in one of those. It could be in one of 4 stages. I've talked with a couple people who are in the depression stage for sure. But more than likely they're in one of the first 3. And if they're in the first one, which is the denial, those conversations don't really go anywhere because they're at that bar stool moment, right? And it's like, a dream client is what you need. No, I don't need a dream client. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, you're in denial, at least for what I can help you do. Not that they're completely wrong, but for what I can help you with, right? And so they're in that denial stage, and I just leave them alone until they now become angry, because then they're like, I'm going to go do these other things. Okay, great. Go do those other things. And they come back to me, and that's what really makes me upset, because not at them, but because I can't solve this problem, because they need to go through these stages on their own. And they come back to me, and they're usually in the anger stage, like, none of this stuff worked. I hired this person. You heard today on Academy, somebody said they paid $4,000. They're in the hole for that, blah, blah, blah. And they're in this, not really angry, but you could say, well, that's an angry stage. Like, I don't want to spend that much money and it didn't work. So I'm meeting people at that stage. And then they get into that bargaining, because if they're financially broke, right, and exhausted and emotionally broke and all these things, they're like, I'm going to do your thing later. I'm just going to get a little bit of money doing this other thing. And that's kind of a combination of denial again, right, and bargaining. So I know your stuff works, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to go do this other thing to try and get some things coming in. And I'm bargaining back to say, I get it. However, let me just give you some perspective here. And if all things the same, this is kind of, can you see this perspective? And it's not trying to convince somebody or manipulate them to buy something or anything else. It's just me trying to pull them out of the bargaining stage to get through that depression very quickly to the acceptance of, hey, the Atlas is going to take you a little bit here. So let's get in there as fast as possible so we can at least start the process here.
Yeah. I think the bargaining shows up in a different way for some people. Or at least how what they're looking for is maybe a little different, because I think the bargaining also just shows up is just tell me what to do. And it's sometimes
always.
It's sometimes looking for that magic pill, but like sometimes it truly is just tell me what to do. Like, do I do a webinar or do I do a challenge? Just tell me what to do. And it's a bargaining with that of like, just tell me what to do, and and I'll do it, and I want it to work because you told me what to do. But I think that maybe comes, maybe that's a bit of bouncing around between bargaining and depression. Like,
what you're bargaining for is getting out of making a decision. You're saying, I don't want this on me. Let's compromise here. I'll do the work. You just tell me what to do. Right. So you're bargaining. You're saying, let's split this movement. Whereas if you put it on yourself, you go, okay, I made the decision and I did the work and it still didn't work. So you're angry at yourself. So that's what the bargaining is.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's just you and I are both going to have a lot of ahas in the next week, because this is so much in our RAS now. But I just thought it was a great.
It is great. Thank you, Kay, for the comment. And Katie, you make me laugh. It's a lot of we all bargain. I believe me, I'm bargaining every day. So, my gosh.
That's the point of the discussion is that we do go through this stuff. And we can't, and it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with having those, wherever you are, for whatever it is and for however long it lasts. We can't escape the pain, and we should be thankful for that. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to get thankful for that.
It does. I think when you get to the entrepreneurship, I can speak to the acceptance part quite a bit, because entrepreneurship is all I know. And when I went through my major depression bargaining thing back in 2019 or 2016 to 19 or that era there, all that stuff came up, major depression parts of it too. But then in the acceptance part of it, there's a lot of acceptance pieces. And a part of it I talk about why all the time, which is I'm not going to have this perfect at all. So I'm going to create this program. I'm just going to build it and see what happens. I'm accepting that it's going to be broken on all kinds of things. Here's how I'm going to show up. And I'm just accepting that fact. I'm accepting that there may not be hundreds and hundreds of people that I'm knocking out of the park on a webinar and saying, look at the thousands of sales that I got from doing this thing, right? Accepting all of these things in a really good way. And still to this day, that's what I do is, we had a discussion today where I said to you that I freeze sometimes when people say, what do you do? And you're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I've accepted that. I've accepted the fact that I just don't have it perfect and I'm still messing with it, and that's okay. And the more I do it, that I've accepted the fact that I'm probably never going to get it right, but it still moved me forward. You follow? Yeah. So if anybody's listening to this, that's where the acceptance helps you in entrepreneurship. Acceptance that you're never going to get it perfectly right. and you probably won't ever get it right. It'll be close, it'll be good, but it probably won't be the right that you have envisioned in your brain. That's why in Atlas, the one where I talk about, I think Dan Sullivan, it's from Dan Sullivan, where he says like our 80% is someone else's 100%.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as I read that, I'm like, yes, bingo, that's it. Because I always get stuck. I used to get stuck at 80%. And I wasn't at acceptance. It was like I was depressed because like, oh, look at me. And then I would get depressed because I'm like, oh, it's almost there, 80%. But look at me, I'm a failure because I just can't finish that last 20%. And I would be depressed. And then once I accepted the fact that this is my work, this is how I do things. And if people can't accept this at 80%, then they're not the people that I want to work with. But they don't know it's 80%. They think it's awesome. Like you saw, like even in the last Atlas, right? You saw my reaction when people said, this has been the best one ever, right? And I'm like, what? And I thought it was like, even worse than the one before. I'm like, huh? What? So it's just accepting. Like that's part of the acceptance. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. The acceptance, I think it comes in different ways. One is to accept what reality is and that we're never going to be perfect. I think one acceptance that I hope people listening and whether live or replay is that you're not alone. Like we all go through this. But I think accepting yourself and allowing yourself to have that, to have the space to make the mistakes and know that they're going to happen.
Yeah, that's acceptance
and sometimes
of the mistake,
we don't
right?
know what mistakes we're going to make. And, it's, I think I've gone through all of these 5 stages in the last week since I did my first public launch in a year, which I'm not going to go into why, but like it's just there's just different pieces there. But I think acceptance also, like at least for me, the times where I've just said, okay, this worked out, but this didn't work out. And I can't make that part that didn't work out. I can't make it work out now. And I just got to quit trying to make it work out. Like having that, sometimes I have that drive and I've got the perfection piece. Like I want it perfect.
Yeah.
I want the world to see perfect. And, so, just having that acceptance that, either here I messed up and I can learn from it, or the acceptance that, it didn't work out, but I worked as hard as I could. I did, like, there's no space. If I look back, I can't say that there was a space where I would have changed anything. And it's still okay that it didn't work out, even though I did that. So I think there's that variation of acceptance, accepting that, we've learned some good things from some people, and then we've had to learn other things from other people. And it's not that it made all of what we learned wrong. And, sometimes I get frustrated, angry.
Right. You're back to just living back to anger.
Yeah. When I hear people like diss a whole part of it, and I love the Atlas way. And when I have my Facebook ad campaign management business, that's how I had clients, that and referrals. Like I was an ad person who never ran an ad to get customers. Like I never had to. I lost the thought. Oh, the anger. So, in there, because I've been a student of Jeff Walker's, I've been a student of Ryan Levesque's, I've been a student of Ryan Dice. Like I've been a student with lots of different online marketers, and some of the things I like, some of them I don't. But I wouldn't have ever got here if I didn't learn from them first. Like
That's right.
I don't know, in the ideal world, looking back, I might have changed the order, but I needed to go through all of that.
That's right.
in order to get to where I am now and to what I believe and what I believe is going to make a difference for online coaches. I couldn't do what I'm doing now without having gone through that.
That's right.
So I do get a little bit of anger when I hear people really start blasting all of those kinds of marketers, and that doesn't work. And certainly it appears more so, speaking of acceleration in the last year, that the product launch formula, the like the 3 videos and the sales videos are likely dying. Like it needs a revamp or a rechange. I don't, maybe because I've been out of it a little bit, but I think there's just something different. But Jeff has a brilliant story arc that he teaches. His marketing, like marketing foundations that he teaches. So it's not like there's anything wrong with that. And I mean, and he's brought in his AI tool, so that's going to help. And but it it's not like it's an either or. Like if we accept that we learned something, even if it didn't work out for us,
Right.
because there's something there that we didn't know before, and that
Yeah.
helps us learn more of what we are learning now. So I think that's a level of acceptance too, is to not berate ourselves or other people for what we might have spent money on that we haven't been able to make work for us.
Yeah. No, like that's the thing that I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on things that didn't work for me. And now it's like, I don't do them anymore. So when people ask me, what do you do or what's the business about? I say, this is what I've learned and this is what I do now. So I know that things work, and I won't ever say they won't work, because I have many, many people who are very successful, as you know, in my network, who do other things. Facebook ads alone, just like seriously. So I'm not going to say, well, no, Facebook ads are never going to work, but I just don't do them. So, and this is where now we're getting into like, who's your dream client? Who's the person who's coming into your life? And if they're going through, if I connect my dream client to those stages, I know exactly who they are. I know what they're going to go through, and I know what they're going to say by the time they get to the acceptance piece, right? By the time they get there, I know exactly what has happened to them.
I love the idea of the 5 stages of grief compared to the chain of beliefs.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a whole different paradigm.
I think that, it is. And also, I can see it paralleled with the message navigator, because, right? Like, if you see these and you kind of have them as a cheat note beside, you're like, okay, what are they responding to in the conversation? And you're like, okay, this person is in denial. Like, there's no reason, even though you have the framework of the message navigator and the chain of beliefs and all that stuff, there's no reason to push this person forward, or at least lay back a little bit, right? Yeah. So I think this is really good to have, kind of just like, how we have the Dean Jackson 5-star on the message navigator. I think that what I'm going to do is put these as well. Say, okay, these are the other things you need to look at. Yes, you need a 5-star prospect here, but where are they on this stage? Like, you can just tell by what they're saying. And if someone is completely in denial of whatever you're doing, that's just where they are, and be okay with that. And this is why when I talk about frameworks, me and Parmees talked a lot about those back a couple of weeks ago. Templates and frameworks, and where people mess it up because they think that it's the magic bullet. Like, here's what to say, or here's kind of what to say, but then there's no interaction or engagement of what we're actually getting back from the person. Like, even what Kay was saying is, okay, start with this, or maybe these are our conversation starters or whatever, but you're not a robot here. You're not a copy and paste. So it's going to make me way more aware of the conversation. I'm pretty good at it now, but now it's like another level. We've added like a mega level on top of the message navigator, for me at least, because I'm like, well, okay, this is the level that they're in. So thank you, Lorna.
Yeah.
Do you want to read that one?
What would getting it right look like? If we had it perfect, what would there be to strive for? Yes, we are human, and it is a great thing, and pain is part of being human. In my work, it is not about acceptance for me, it is acknowledging. Thanks, Joey, Lorna, and Kay. It was a great session. As
Well,
always,
that's
love it.
that's pretty good. That's pretty profound. Like, that if you did get it perfect, what else would there be?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Which brings me to
Yeah.
another question I was going to ask you, which is, and then we'll end tonight quickly, which is, what stage do you think is the hardest to get out of?
Oh, I think whether it's entrepreneurship or it's a personal situation that you're going through the 5 stages. If I had to pick one, and
Hmm.
I don't know that I'm right in this, I would say depression.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
That's the one that hits.
when I look at like there's an emotional scale that I use that comes from another part of my life, but that starts at like the lowest when you're looking at vibration of energy, and the lowest, like the whole lowest is suicidal.
Hmm.
Is not wanting to live.
Hmm.
But depression would be lower on that.
Wow,
And
really?
well, not lower than suicidal, but like it would still be in that lower third of those. I don't know them right off. I don't have them memorized. I like they're
Mm.
kind of in clumps. Like even with anger, there's feeling. Like often
Yep.
with depression, there's a lack of feeling. Like you don't feel there's nothing. Like it's flat affect. There's no emotion. Um,
Mm.
once you get into um, like you can get into frustration and anger, you're starting to actually start to feel again. So I think that's a
Okay,
different place to be.
that's interesting because I always, I shouldn't say joke, but I always say, when I was going through my time there in the 2016 to 18 or whatever, I always say like I was more than likely depressed because I
Mhm.
wasn't clinically diagnosed as being depressed, but I felt, because I have no idea. But now you're telling me that like, okay, well, no, there's no feeling. And I would wake up every day with feeling. Like I would wake up every day. I called it depressed because I'm like, I'm crying, I'm
Well, there's
weeping,
sadness. There's sadness,
right? So
like
I had
deep
more
sadness.
feeling than I did emptiness. But
Yeah.
I would say like I just felt so depressed because I couldn't get going. Like I was over. I was go back between anger and bargaining, like all those three. Like maybe every single day wake up angry or no, yeah, angry, yeah, wake up angry or like emotional, and then bargaining and then depression. Like maybe every single day I
Yeah.
went through each one of those like every single
Could have,
day,
yeah,
right?
could have. And I could be wrong. And I mean, if anyone's listening that's got far more psychology background, I mean, I've got lots of background in psychology, but not necessarily. Anyway, um, I mean, there is sadness with depression, hopelessness. I don't know where they fit one over the other, but I think that
Definitely
the,
there
the
was hopelessness there. Like, damn,
yeah,
it's never gonna work. Like, you know.
yeah,
I've tried this for so long and nothing's even working now. And yeah,
yeah. And I think I think depression shows up in a couple of different ways and varies from day to day.
yeah,
And I think even I think in all cases, but I think for us because we can go through all five um, at a time, but maybe for the same reasons, where for whatever reason you're depressed in those stages of grief. The right person comes up to have a visit with you can change,
mm-hmm,
can change your state. And
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
just think that people, I think people, it's easier for me to get somebody on Zoom than it is for me to ask for somebody to come see me. But maybe that's the cone of, online entrepreneurship that nobody else understands. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think but I think because depression sometimes gets to hopelessness, that it, it,
yeah. Like I think that like
it's more
the words are
challenging
like,
to
yeah,
get.
it's kind of weird. Like the words are, they're dicey, like what the right words are.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, I got into a place where it was like, I'm hopeless. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm just going to stop doing everything. and that saved me. It saved my business. But I think I went from that hopelessness, if you want to call it that, into acceptance very quickly. It was kind of a merge. It was like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. And I'm just going to just go do this thing every day. And then it was acceptance of the fact that nothing else worked and nothing is going to work. So I'm done. So it was kind of a good, like a sad acceptance, if you want to call it that, I guess.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, here you go.
And I'd say I think that, I often feel like I'm those 2 or 3 steps behind you, because I would say for like a good part of the year of this past year,
Yeah.
that's where I have been, and maybe even more so than I thought at the time. But it today it just feels like I just needed to go through that. It took me to a different place. Like I don't know how to explain it. But without, I guess one of the same, if I heard you right, is that I didn't stop. Like I still persevered, and I was still persistent in that I needed to find out something, and something needed to change. I didn't, like, there was no giving up, but certainly low energy, like certainly.
Yeah. I was just at a place where it was an acceptance of, what do you want to call it? I'll just use the word acceptance, because there's probably a whole other, doors of avenues where we can go with this, what I'm going to say. But the fact was, I basically gave in. Like, this is how my life is. That's it. I have to accept it, that I'm not going to be that online dude that I wanted to be. And I'm not ever going to have $100,000 business and beyond and blah, blah, blah. And this is just the way it is. It's going to be a struggle to pay my lights every single month. And so be it. And I accepted that. It was not easy, but it was like, but I'm just going to keep on going in and doing whatever I'm going to do, like every day, and helping and this and that. And that's why I say to people that I didn't have a plan. There was no atlas. There was no anything. It was like, no idea what I'm doing. And because I guess I went through those stages and just accepted the fact, it opened up a whole new door. So it's really weird when I think back at it and looking at these 5 stages to label it. But it definitely, I was accepting the fact of, for me, it was like, I'm not going to kill myself. My life's not over and all that stuff. It was like, this is the way it's going to be. It's always been a struggle, right? I was successful, like really, really successful, like 1 or 2 times in my life before, but now's now. Again, remember, like, that was then, this is now. Like, and this is just the way it is, because I missed the boat on this online thing and whatever. Oh. And then lo and behold, right place, right time.
Yeah. Well, and some persistence as well. Like, it sounded like the acceptance, like surrender, is what came to mind.
Surrender for sure. Yeah.
And so when you let go of that, like when you're trying to push so hard, trying to make it work, and when you surrender and let go of that, then things change. I mean, that's surrender and acceptance. And
yeah, that's what I mean. There's so many different ways we could spin this, and different words, and what does it all mean, right? Which will be another 3 hours. But yeah. So thank you, Lorna. I appreciate you. This is a great topic. I'm really glad that you brought this up. Thank you for being here live. Let us know by hitting #live or #replay by now, because we're just at the end of the show. And let us know that you're here. That'd be amazing. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for the likes and all that. Thank you for being a part of this show. For 2023, this is the last show. We are taking off next week because it is December 26th. And I kind of got some holiday plans with the family and stuff like that. So we're going to take off. It'll be the first time we take off on a Tuesday since I've been doing this show. Just happened to be a Tuesday this time around, the 26th. Actually, next year be how does the calendar go? So next year will be actually Christmas, won't it? On the Tuesday, because it shifts.
No.
Or does it go backwards?
No. It's the 26th. It's 7 days from today. Today's the 19th.
But next year will be the 20. Yeah. Will that be the 20?
No, anyway. It'll go forward. It would go to Wednesday.
Yeah. So that means the Christmas day will be Tuesday. Yeah, I think there is a leap year.
Because then it'll be Wednesday. I mean, it'll be Thursday.
Yeah,
You and I
whatever.
shouldn't be talking about these things.
Forget it. We're not going to do math. Thank you for being here for 2023, and I hope you have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I sure am going to have a blast. I can't wait to come back on January 2nd. Let me just look at my calendar. That I will look at my calendar. Yeah, so January 2nd, we're going to be here. Any last final words for this episode in 2023 for you, Lorna?
I think just, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and just pay attention to what's going on for you and know that someone else has gone through it. You're not alone. And, we didn't plug the Facebook group, but you can hop into the Facebook group and we're always there for you.
I put it in one time, but I'll put it in again here. And thank you, Collie, as well. Merry Christmas to you. Yeah. Lots of love to you, and lots of love to everybody else who was here, who bounced already. Thank you very much, and we very appreciate everything. And it's been coming up to, I don't know how long it's been now. It's been a long time since we've been doing this show, 3-4 years, something like that. So thank you, Lorna. We will see you in January.
You betcha.
Bye now.